It's nothing serious. Just lay off the chili and you should be fine.
It looks like you're burning money.
I know. Talk to someone else.
All right, let's be real for a second. Either the Simpsons writers have access to some time-traveling device, or they're just too good at guessing the future. And the more I talk about these predictions, the harder it is to believe in coincidences.
You're here for one reason and one reason only, to create a pseudocurrency like the Bitcoin.
Today, we're diving into some of the most terrifying predictions made by The Simpsons, ones that make you question if this is just a cartoon or something more sinister. And trust me, you don't want to miss this last one. The Los Angeles wildfires. Wildfires tearing through California. It's a tragic reality that seems to happen year after year. But when a Simpsons episode from 2007 eerily mirrored these events, fans lost their minds. I mean, could the show have predicted the devastating Los Angeles wildfires? Well, not exactly. But let's break it down. In Season 18, Episode 12, titled Little Big Girl, Springfield is hit with a massive fire, threatening the town and its residents. The scenes? It's uncomfortably close to what's been happening in LA. We're talking about flames consuming entire areas, firefighters struggling to contain them, and a community scrambling to survive. And before you ask, yes, someone on TikTok already made the connection. Putting the clips side by side, and the resemblance is shocking. The video exploded online, and the comments, exactly what you'd expect. People were freaking out, saying things like, "How did they know?" and "The Simpsons should do an episode about world peace so it happens." I mean, that's not a bad idea, right? Now, before we start suspecting The Simpsons of witchcraft, let's take a step back. Experts argue that this isn't some supernatural prophecy. It's just really smart writing. Think about it. California has always struggled with wildfires. Climate change, drought, and environmental factors make it an ongoing crisis. The show simply picked up on an issue that was bound to happen again. The Pacific Palisades area alone has seen multiple major fires in recent years. So was this really a prediction, or just The Simpsons being hyper-aware of real-world issues? Wildfires aren't the only thing The Simpsons may have seen coming, because while their fiery prediction turned out to be more about smart writing than magic, their next one, it's straight-up bizarre. What if I told you the future of food might not even involve real food at all? Sounds crazy, right? Well,
it's green and sparkly. It's tingly in my mouth. This is magical.
Not if you've seen the episode where Homer and Marge are literally eating in virtual reality. And here's the wild part. It's happening. Virtual reality food. Okay, let's talk about food, because who doesn't love food? But what if I told you that The Simpsons predicted a future where we don't even need to eat real food anymore? Yeah, I know. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but hold on. In this episode, Homer and Marge are seen wearing virtual reality headsets, feeding each other digital fudge through straws. I mean, if that's not the weirdest way to enjoy dessert, I don't know what is.
Virtual fudge tastes like crap.
But here's where it gets interesting, because this is happening. Believe it or not, there's a real-world version of this, and it's called Aero Banquets RMX. And trust me, it's wild. Imagine sitting at a fancy restaurant, but instead of your regular plate of food, you're strapped into a VR headset and transported into a completely different world while you eat. Sounds like something from a futuristic dream, right?
Right.
Aero Banquets RMX combines French cuisine with cutting-edge VR technology, creating an experience unlike anything else. Your senses are completely immersed. Sight, sound, smell, taste, everything. One moment you're savoring a fine meal, the next you're visually exploring an underwater world, or floating through space. And let's be honest, if this had been introduced before The Simpsons aired that episode, people would have thought it was a joke. And this isn't just some niche experience. VR dining is becoming a real thing. Restaurants are already experimenting with ways to transport diners to places they could never visit in real life.
Anyway,
Imagine sipping wine while virtually walking through a vineyard in Italy, or eating seafood while seeing and hearing the ocean waves crash around you. This kind of immersive dining isn't just entertainment, it's a way to completely change how we experience food.
Not half as good as cyber fudge.
And honestly, it makes me wonder, if The Simpsons already showed us this years ago, then what's next? So, virtual food might sound like science fiction, but it's already happening.
what a bleak, horrible future we live in!
Don't you mean present?
And if The Simpsons got that right, what else have they predicted that's even more unbelievable?
Exactly what I imagined.
Food coma. He'll be fine.
Well, what if I told you Homer Simpson, yes, Homer Simpson, accidentally solved one of the biggest mysteries in science nearly 14 years before the world's top physicists did. Buckle up, because this one is mind-blowing.
Excuse me, are you a student at this school?
I think it's pretty obvious that I am.
Homer and Higgs boson.
Invented this revolutionary makeup gun. And now you're ready for a night on the town.
All right, let's set the scene. The year is 1998. In the episode The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Homer suddenly decides to become an inventor.
Let's see now. Invention.
And in a moment of pure accidental genius, he scribbles down an equation on a chalkboard. At first glance, it just looks like a random bunch of numbers, but fast forward 14 years, and physicists at CERN finally prove the existence of the Higgs boson, also known as the God particle. And guess what? Homer's equation was shockingly close to the actual mass of the Higgs boson. I mean, what? Now, before we start thinking Homer is a secret physics prodigy, there's a real explanation for this crazy coincidence. And it turns out, The Simpsons writers are nerds, big-time nerds. Dr. Simon Singh, a physicist and author, actually studied this bizarre prediction and confirmed that the equation Homer wrote was eerily accurate. According to him, if you plug in the numbers, you get a value that's only slightly larger than the real Higgs boson mass discovered at CERN in 2012. It's kind of amazing, Singh said. Homer made this prediction 14 years before it was discovered.
You don't understand how the creative mind works like I do.
Oh?
And here's the thing. This wasn't a fluke. A lot of the writers behind The Simpsons have serious backgrounds in mathematics and science. David X. Cohen, one of the show's head writers, actually collaborated with his high school friend David Shiminovich, an astronomer at Columbia University, to craft this scene. And when you mix comedy with genius-level math, well, sometimes you accidentally predict the future. But let's not downplay this. The Higgs boson isn't just any scientific breakthrough. This particle is literally what gives everything in the universe its mass. Without it, the laws of physics as we know them wouldn't even work. The Higgs boson was first theorized back in the 1960s by physicist Peter Higgs, but it wasn't until 2012, over 50 years later, that scientists finally confirmed its existence. And yet, somehow, Homer Simpson managed to scribble an equation that nearly predicted its mass over a decade before it was discovered.
It isn't working. I've got to try a different approach. Ah.
I don't know about you, but I'm starting to think The Simpsons writers have access to something the rest of us don't. But here's the thing. Their predictions aren't just about world-changing scientific discoveries. Sometimes, they predict the future of technology itself. And trust me, this next one is something every parent wishes they had.
Do you mind?
The Baby Translator. Let's go back to 1992. In the episode Brother, Can You Spare 2 Dimes?, Homer's half-brother, Herb Powell, is down on his luck after Homer accidentally bankrupted his company. Desperate for a comeback, Herb pitches an invention that sounds ridiculous at first, a device that translates baby talk into actual words. And while it might have seemed like just another Simpsons gag, this idea is becoming real. Herb's invention was a huge success in the episode, making him rich again. But here's where it gets interesting. Companies today are developing baby translation technology. Several apps and AI-driven devices now claim to analyze a baby's cries and determine whether they're hungry, tired, or even in pain. These programs use machine learning and sophisticated audio analysis to detect patterns in infant vocalizations, exactly what Herb Powell's translator did in The Simpsons. Of course, they're not perfect. Scientists say these technologies still have a long way to go before they can truly understand baby language. But even so, the fact that a fictional device from 1992 is now a real thing, that's wild. But here's a question. Should we trust AI to interpret a baby's needs? Sure, a machine can detect a sound pattern, but can it replace a parent's instincts? Some experts worry that parents relying too much on technology might lose touch with their natural ability to understand their children. Still, whether you see it as helpful or a little creepy, this is yet another example of The Simpsons predicting something that seemed impossible until it wasn't. Predicting the future of technology is one thing, but what if The Simpsons managed to predict the outcome of an actual Olympic event? 8 years before it happened. Olympic curling win. All right, let's talk about The Simpsons predicting sports. In the 2010 episode Boy Meets Curl, Homer and Marge, along with their neighbors, the Skinners, form a mixed curling team and somehow make it to the Winter Olympics in Vancouver. And in classic Simpsons fashion, against all odds, Team USA faces off against Sweden in the gold medal match and wins. Sounds like a fun, light-hearted sports episode, right? Well, here's where things get crazy. Fast forward to 2018. The Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea. The US men's curling team, led by Skip John Schuster, had never won an Olympic gold medal before. But that year, they did exactly what Homer's team did. They defeated Sweden in the final round to win gold. This was a huge moment for Team USA, marking only the second time America had won a curling medal at the Winter Olympics, and fans were quick to point out this was exactly what The Simpsons predicted 8 years earlier. The Simpsons writers themselves were blown away by this one. Producer Rob Lezebnik, who wrote the episode, went on Twitter to celebrate the eerie prediction, saying that when they first came up with the idea, they had no clue how accurate it would turn out to be. Originally, Lezebnik was going to write about bobsledding, but instead, he chose curling because it worked better for Homer and Marge's relationship. So, The Simpsons didn't just predict an Olympic gold medal win, they predicted who would win, who they'd play against, and even how it would happen. At this point, their track record is getting ridiculous. But let's shift gears for a second. Because while predicting sports is impressive, predicting the future of technology, that's a whole other level. Simpsons VR prediction. Alright, let's talk about VR, virtual reality. In a 2016 episode titled Friends and Family, Mr. Burns, in his usual eccentric fashion, decides that he needs a family. But instead of, adopting or getting married, he turns to, what else? Technology. He hires the Simpsons to act as his family in a VR simulation, donning headsets that let him experience a perfect family life without all the real human interactions. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, just a few years later, reality started to catch up. In 2024, Apple launched the Vision Pro, a high-end, fully immersive VR and AR headset. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the future of VR, just like The Simpsons did years earlier. And let's not forget, the show has referenced VR multiple times. In a 2014 episode, Mr. Burns gifts his employees augmented reality glasses, eerily similar to Google Glass, or even Apple's latest Vision for AR. Bitcoin prediction. If there's one thing that no one saw coming, it was Bitcoin. This mysterious, decentralized digital currency changed the financial world forever, but apparently, The Simpsons had already called it. In the 2020 episode Frinkcoin, Professor Frink launches his cryptocurrency, poking fun at the insane rise of digital coins and the meme-driven nature of the crypto world. And sure, it's just a joke, but it wasn't the only time The Simpsons hinted at Bitcoin's dominance. In 2021, during the episode Burger Kings, Marge is seen watching a stock ticker, and what's on the screen? Bitcoin, with an infinity symbol next to it. Now let's be real. Bitcoin hasn't hit infinity yet, but the message was clear. Cryptocurrency is going to the moon. The Simpsons has always been a satirical show, but over the years, it's also taken shots at traditional financial institutions. Whether it's mocking Wall Street, corporate greed, or centralized banking, the show has long hinted at the flaws in our financial system. And that's exactly why Bitcoin was created, to be an alternative to banks, free from government control. So, did The Simpsons just reflect the times, or did they see the financial future coming? They've predicted science, they've predicted sports, they've predicted technology. But what if I told you they also foresaw a real-life tragedy, one that gripped the entire world in 2023? Because the next prediction, it's downright chilling. Titan sub disaster. June 18th, 2023. The Titan, a submersible operated by OceanGate, descends into the deep waters of the North Atlantic, carrying 5 passengers on a high-risk journey to see the Titanic wreckage. But just over an hour into the dive, disaster strikes. Contact is lost. The submersible never resurfaces. And days later, authorities confirm the unthinkable. The Titan suffered a catastrophic implosion, claiming the lives of everyone on board. But here's where things get creepy. Let's rewind, back to 2006. In the Simpsons episode, Homer's Paternity Coot, Homer embarks on an underwater adventure in a small submersible with Mason Fairbanks, a man he believes might be his real father. They're searching for a sunken treasure ship, but suddenly, things go wrong. Homer gets trapped, his oxygen runs dangerously low, and he ultimately loses consciousness underwater. He wakes up 3 days later in a hospital, having miraculously survived. Now, tell me, that doesn't sound eerily familiar. The comparisons between this episode and the real-life Titan tragedy are hard to ignore. A small submersible? Check. A deep-sea expedition? Check. Running out of oxygen? Chillingly accurate. But is this a prediction, or just another eerie coincidence? Some skeptics argue that The Simpsons has covered so many topics over the years, over 700 episodes, that some were bound to overlap with real events. But then there's this. Mike Rice, a Simpsons producer, later revealed that he had been on the Titan sub himself, and during his dives, communications were also lost. He admitted that the risks of these expeditions were well known, making the storyline in The Simpsons less of a psychic vision and more of a grim reflection of reality. So, is it a coincidence? Maybe. But when a cartoon keeps getting things this close to reality, it's hard not to wonder if they do have some kind of crystal ball. And speaking of real-world consequences, sometimes it's not just tragedies that The Simpsons seem to predict. It's political chaos, corruption, and even our voting system. Because up next, we're diving into one of their most controversial predictions, one that happened just 4 years later. Voting machine glitch. It's 2008. The US presidential election is in full swing. And in The Simpsons' annual Treehouse of Horror special, Homer Simpson heads to the polls to cast his vote. He steps up to the electronic voting machine and selects Barack Obama. And what happens next? 1 vote for McCain. Homer frowns, tries again. 2 votes for McCain. He frantically taps the screen. 3, 4, 5, 6 votes for McCain. He screams and punches the machine, and in true Simpsons fashion, the machine eats him alive. Funny? Absolutely. But here's the thing. 4 years later, something shockingly similar happened in real life. Fast forward to 2012. Barack Obama is running for re-election against Mitt Romney, and in a polling station in Pennsylvania, a real-life voting machine starts doing exactly what The Simpsons joked about, changing votes for Obama into votes for Romney. The glitch was caught on camera, went viral, and the machine had to be removed from service. Sound familiar? Now let's be real. Was The Simpsons saying that voter fraud was happening? It was satirizing the very real concerns people already had about electronic voting machines. But that's the weird part. The show didn't just tap into a general fear. It showed the exact type of malfunction that later happened in real life. And here's where it gets even more unsettling. This isn't the first time The Simpsons has made eerily accurate political predictions. They somehow foresaw Donald Trump becoming president way back in 2000. They've referenced global political scandals before they happened. And now, they accidentally predicted one of the biggest voting controversies of the last decade. At what point do we stop calling these coincidences and start asking real questions? So, let's recap. The Simpsons didn't just joke about faulty voting machines, they practically predicted a real-life voting controversy 4 years before it happened. And as we've seen, their political forecasts have an uncanny habit of coming true. But their predictive powers don't stop at politics. Sometimes they see into music history itself. And in this next case, a throwaway joke from 1996 turned into a legendary concert, one that no one saw coming. Cypress Hill Orchestra. Picture this. It's 1996, and The Simpsons is at its absolute peak. In the episode Homerpalooza, Homer stumbles his way through a grunge-era music festival. Backstage, a confused festival coordinator asks, did Cypress Hill order the London Symphony Orchestra? Possibly while high. The joke lands perfectly. I mean, Cypress Hill, one of the most legendary hip-hop groups of all time, performing with a full symphony orchestra, it's so absurd, it has to be fiction. Right? Wrong. Fast forward nearly 3 decades. It's July 10th, 2024. Royal Albert Hall is one of the most prestigious music venues in the world. The London Symphony Orchestra takes the stage, and then Cypress Hill walks out. Yep. Somehow, that random joke from The Simpsons became a real-life event, one that fans had been waiting 28 years to see. But here's the best part. This wasn't just a happy accident. Cypress Hill themselves made it happen. The idea started gaining traction back in 2017 when the band tweeted out the old Simpsons clip. The London Symphony Orchestra responded with, "We mostly play classical, but we'll give it a shot." And they did. In 2024, Cypress Hill celebrated the 30th anniversary of their iconic album Black Sunday, the same album that gave us Insane in the Brain. So what better way to mark the occasion than by finally making The Simpsons joke a reality? According to Be Real, Cypress Hill's frontman, this performance was a dream come true, a bucket list moment. And let's be real, how often does a rap group seriously collaborate with a world-class symphony orchestra? But the best part? The cultural clash between the two groups. One of the funniest moments? Cypress Hill used the word Glock, which they meant as a reference to a gun. But the orchestra? They thought they were talking about a glockenspiel. You know, the tiny xylophone-looking instrument? Yeah, that's the kind of pure gold you only get from a collaboration like this. So, Cypress Hill did perform with the London Symphony Orchestra, just like The Simpsons joked about back in 1996. But as crazy as that prediction was, at least it ended on a high note. But not every so-called Simpsons prediction is so straightforward. In some cases, the internet twists things, creating a story that never even happened. And when it involves royalty, well, let's just say, things can get wild. Queen's death. After Queen Elizabeth II passed away on September 8, 2022, rumors spread like wildfire that The Simpsons had somehow predicted it. The internet exploded with claims that the show had featured the Queen in a coffin, with her exact death date marked on screen. Sounds like classic Simpsons, right? Well, not exactly. As it turns out, that entire prediction, completely fake. No such scene ever aired. The Simpsons never showed the Queen's death, never put her in a coffin, and never engraved a prophetic date onto the screen. So where did this rumor come from? Simple: Photoshop and misinformation. In the weeks following the Queen's passing, doctored images started circulating online, showing fake scenes of the Queen's death in The Simpsons art style. Some videos even stitched together clips from completely unrelated episodes, tricking people into thinking the show had made another uncanny prediction. But here's the reality. The closest The Simpsons ever got to a royal scandal was an episode from 2003 called The Regina Monologues. In this episode, The Simpsons take a trip to England, where, shockingly, Homer manages to crash his car straight into the Queen's royal coach. Yeah, not exactly the best way to make a good first impression. As a result, Homer gets thrown into the Tower of London, which, let's be honest, probably should have happened sooner considering all the chaos he's caused over the years. But nowhere in this episode does the Queen die, get sick, or have any hint of an untimely end. The whole plot is just classic Simpsons absurdity, not some kind of psychic prediction. So, if The Simpsons didn't predict the Queen's death, why do people believe it did? Well, part of it is because some of the show's predictions have come true. This isn't even the first time people have faked a Simpsons prediction. The truth is, The Simpsons is good at satirizing the world, and sometimes that satire accidentally lines up with reality. But when it doesn't, the internet is more than happy to make it up anyway. Nuclear plant oversight. If there's one place that should have strict regulations, it's Springfield Nuclear Power Plant. But with Homer Simpson in charge of safety, Yeah, let's just say disaster is never far away. Over the years, The Simpsons has repeatedly mocked the lack of accountability in industries dealing with extreme risks. And sometimes, that satire ends up looking a little too real. In the Season 5 episode Homer Goes to College, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or NRC, finally does what we've all been waiting for. They inspect the plant. The result? A total disaster. The inspectors quickly realize Homer isn't qualified for his job at all. He's so clueless that he triggers a meltdown in a simulator. The NRC warns Mr. Burns that unless Homer gets proper training, the plant could be shut down and Burns himself could face criminal charges. Sounds familiar, right? This hits close to home because, in real life, poor regulatory oversight has led to serious nuclear disasters, most notably the Chernobyl meltdown in 1986 and the Fukushima disaster in 2011. The episode exaggerates this issue for laughs, but the core message is clear. Unqualified workers in high-risk jobs can lead to catastrophe, and sometimes the government does something about it, eventually. Homer Goes to College also shines a light on another very real issue: corporate corruption. When faced with the inspection, Mr. Burns' first instinct isn't to fix the problem. It's to bribe the officials, because of course, that's what he does. Classic Burns. This highlights a major concern in real-world regulation. Sometimes those in power bend the rules to protect their interests. Whether it's cutting corners, dodging inspections, or even influencing regulators, corporations have been known to avoid accountability at all costs. Sound too far-fetched? Just look at the real-life scandals surrounding lax oversight in industries like big oil, finance, and nuclear energy. This wasn't the first time The Simpsons tackled government inspections at the nuclear plant. In Homer's Odyssey 1990, Homer gets fired after yet another accident, only to reinvent himself as a safety advocate. Ironically, this leads to him getting rehired as the plant's safety inspector. Yes, you heard that right. The man who caused the problem is now in charge of fixing it. So there you have it, the most spine-chilling, bizarre, and downright unexplainable predictions from The Simpsons. From technological glitches to political upheavals, disasters, and unexpected celebrity moments, this show has somehow foreseen events that would leave even the most skeptical viewer scratching their head. But is it a prediction, or just a brilliant satire that taps into the inevitable patterns of history? Maybe it's all just a coincidence. Or maybe The Simpsons knows something we don't. What do you think? Is this all just a random chance? Or does The Simpsons have a weird way of peering into the future? Let us know in the comments. And while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the strangest mysteries pop culture has to offer. Because if The Simpsons has taught us anything, it's that the future is always full of surprises.